Hi, morning everybody. Welcome to Talking Niagara. Yeah, did I see the colours of the dawn breaking? She asked.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
interesting. She just popped her head in just as I was. Anyway, just we were starting off. Anyway, so welcome everybody to Talking Niagara this morning. It's Tuesday, the 19th of November, and well, we've got a few interesting show things for you. Some we didn't start yesterday, which was interest in moving to Canada soars amid the fears about Donald Trump's election, right?
Oh, yeah.
But how many times have I heard this? It was like the last time I heard it was Republicans moving to Canada because they feared that Obama was the election.
Well, lots of these are doubtful, but this in particular case, they seem to have a lot of professionals and people like that, uh, celebrities and so on, wanting to move to Canada or interested in moving to Canada. I think they're overreacting. Basically, I don't think really much has changed in the States, except you do have this extremely right wing government that's kind of an odd right wing government too. It's like not your typical Republican government.
Yeah.
I think they're
Don't know
overreacting,
that.
particularly um, particularly people of means that want to move up here. I can understand there's going to be mobs and mobs and mobs of refugees trying to get into Canada. I can understand that they're going to get scared because he's going to start with a million. The first million are supposed to be those who are criminals or have recently got into the country and then work his way down. The feasibility of him being able to do what he says he's going to do, 11 million people out of the country, there are a lot of problems associated with that and a lot of costs. So it might not nearly be as bad as you think.
Yeah, and in fact, actually, I think that when it comes down to it, the cost of that, all of that kind of stuff, is going to end up being quite prohibitive.
Yes, but it is most likely going to send a whole pile of refugee seekers north to Canada. A
Yeah.
lot of these people are afraid, of course, that they're going to get tossed back to the countries of their origin. However, and I don't think the Canadian government is anywhere prepared to take on the flux of people coming
I
in.
don't think we are prepared to take them on. We've got enough troubles as it stands right now, and I'm not suggesting that any of these, that I don't know what's going to happen to these people. It's going to be really quite difficult.
Basically, a lot of the problems we have in Central America are caused by the drug traffic that's going through there. We even find a country like Costa Rica now being that was a relatively good democracy or becoming overwhelmed with drug gangs and drug traffickers. And it's um, basically it's the appetite for drugs in the United States that is fueling the problems that are existing, at least in Central and South America. What's causing people to move? Part of the reason why they're moving is because of what has happened to their countries, because of the drug cartels and so on. Well,
I've read a
we
few.
say we like you have people saying I hear, well, we haven't treated the Central Americans well enough. We haven't done this. We haven't done that. But basically, the fundamental reason why so many people are moving here from those places are fear of the drug cartels, and that fear is ultimately driven by the insatiable appetite of North America, particularly the United States, for cocaine.
Yeah, and to some extent, I wonder if they decriminalize that whole market, whether that would actually stop the stop that trade.
Yeah, but cocaine is one of those things that is very, very bad for you. Very.
I'm not saying I think it's a good idea. I'm just you know, first stab in the dark, just wondering what the net effect of decriminalizing it would be.
I think probably it's more likely we should do something like provide cocaine to cocaine addicts, so we could cut out the drug, the
dealers,
the crime part of it.
Yeah.
That might be a solution. But the fact of the matter is, we have an insatiable appetite for drugs, whether it's fentanyl, whether it's cocaine. It's just, we just cannot get enough.
Yeah.
And that, of course, is driving crime and directly or indirectly driving people to move from those areas that have been devastated by criminal action moving north. So so that's a big problem. And while we're on it, there's a video that Prime Minister Trudeau has put out about immigration. It's been very effective. It's on YouTube. He's kind of taken a page out of two books. He's taken a page out of Poilievre's book, as Poilievre has used YouTube effectively by putting on videos. The Canadian government hasn't done that very much, but they are now. And the other page of the book he's taken out of Doug Ford's. When Doug Ford, when he messes up, he admits it. So what you have is a video that now has had 500,000 views already, and it's just been issued about immigration and how they failed in immigration, and he explained what they did and how they made a mistake. And it's kind of like an apology, but not too much of an apology. That we're going to do a whole lot.
Doug Ford is right in admitting, when you make a mistake, you admit it and you move on, right? It's very, in business, it's been an accepted strategy for probably 40 years.
Well, you don't see politicians doing it, and you don't see the Liberal government doing it at all.
No.
They've never done it. So what they've done is they've taken a little bit a look at Doug Ford and the population as a whole appreciates that. That's what, the polls have suggested, or the studies have suggested, when a politician is honest like that about a mistake they make, that there's a positive feedback on that, which was otherwise thought not to be. And the other part of it is how Poilievre has used YouTube to push his agenda. And it looks like the Liberals have had some success with this. So they're kind of learning.
Learning, but maybe a little bit too little, too late. Okay, so one of these things said, one of these is actually about person learning. Said, my grandparents knew when it was time to go and they left. And they're talking about his grandparents who leaving Nazi Germany. Right, what became Nazi Germany. They left.
In reference to the Trudeau video?
No, in reference to the Trump election in America. Right. So my grandparents knew when it was time to go. They left Germany, and at the right time. I'm feeling the same way. I need to have an exit strategy right now. Right. So this is somebody who's looking at ways to get out of the United States right now.
Yeah, but the difference here is it was very clear that like Hitler had the brown shirts and he had goons on the street and they were smashing windows, and they had
it's a whole heap.
In 1934, he had the Night of the Long Knives, where he just kind of killed all his opposition or all his competitors in the party. You don't see that happening here. I don't see it ever happening there. I don't think the American people will stand for it. And there's only so far that Trump can go. and I think they're being overly frightened. But that's never mind that. Like I have a friend in Florida who rents her place out during the wintertime, and her prospective tenants, basically for the winter, were reluctant to come down to Florida because of the results of the last election. That kind of shocked me that some people are that frightened of what has happened politically in the United States that won't go from Canada or northern United States into Florida, which is thought to be sort of Trump land, basically. And they think that that's going to be a problem. Well, good God, man, I've been there several times. I'll go there in a minute again. I am completely opposed, mostly politically, to the people that live in the building that she's in. And so what? Everybody's polite and everybody's accepting of everyone else's view. Yeah. So I don't really understand the paranoia right now. There's nothing yet has showed me anything there that needs paranoia.
I think it's more a case of people just being concerned, right? He's promised a certain amount of change. He's promised certain things, and always people worry that, hey, if I go down from Canada to the United States, what if they decide I'm an illegal, right? Now, the chances of that ever happening, you walk across the border, they let you in, you're legal, you're a legal visitor, right? So long as you don't outstay your welcome, and with Canadians going there, there's not actually like, yeah, you've got 90 days, right? There's nothing like that. We don't really have limitations. Well, there probably are legal limitations, but there's nothing. We don't get a stamp on our passport to say you've got 90 days.
No, we don't. That may be coming, though. It depends.
It's possible.
We are now an avenue for a lot of illegals going into the United States now, and we've found that a lot of people have come here with visitor visas or whatever else. Will try to jump ship and get into the United States. In fact, has been a big problem. So I don't know. It may be something that's coming. It depends on the economic balance between the two countries. If our economy starts to tank even more than it is, our dollar is near historic lows. If it gets any much worse, you're going to have people trying to bail into the U.S. and hope there's a better life there economically.
There's got to be a certain amount of economic migration anyway. Canadians who go who take advantage of what's going on in their industry, who move south to the US because at the moment their industry is better, in a better circumstance in the US than it is in Canada, and vice versa. Americans who come north because their industry is doing better in Canada right now.
Yeah, but that's all beside the point. You're talking about things that are good, normal, ordinary cross-border services. Yeah. I'm talking about people who become desperate or for ideological reasons. They are afraid. And
there's a lot of people who are saying there's much to be afraid of. I'm one of these people that says, let's see.
I don't think there's a whole lot. You remember, you still have a legal system there. You still have laws. You still have half the people in the United States voted for Democrats.
Yeah.
Trump won by less than 2% of the popular vote. What does that tell you? It tells you the country is half and half.
Yeah.
In this particular case, he got the advantage. And for the next 4 years, we'll run roughshod on right of center, or maybe much right of center policies. But all things have to be cleared. Even the Senate is balking at Gates's, what's that guy's name? Mark Gertz or whatever his name is, appointee as the justice minister who is being proved to have had sex with minors and so on. So there is problems. You know what I mean? It sounds, and Elon Musk's
that's why I say
having battles with other Republicans right now about policy. So the Republicans think, okay, everything is rosy, but no, all the internal battles and fights are happening, and that's part of the checks and balances. So even if Trump wants everybody to put on jackboots and goose step down the road, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, this is America after all. In any case, America has also got a constitution and amendments that not easy to amend.
Remember, it survived McCarthyism, didn't it?
Yes.
It survived the
Exactly.
Civil War. You know, so it has the capacity to renew it.
Civil war is one of those potential outcomes anyway that people have discussed in the past in relation to the current political era, whether Trump is in it or not.
Yeah, we'll see how his policies come down. Remember, it's going to be the popularity of the people and in the end.
Yeah.
So we shall see. The current fear is misplaced. It is not like somebody knowing that it's time to leave Germany. Well, that was pretty damn clear when people are belly aching against Jews and thinking them of as subhuman vermin. You know, if I heard that, yeah, I got to get out of here. But you don't hear stuff like that in the States right now.
Yeah,
you hear some pretty odd things, but nothing that will allow Trump to become a Hitlerian, at least anyway.
Yeah. And I think that in fact, actually, well, I don't know. Wait and see. Wait and see, I think. All right. Moving on. Now we've got Cisco, Campion, and Diodati have now supported using the notwithstanding clause to address homeless encampments.
Yeah, basically, it's just a rerun of what we've already been talking about. There is this general shift away from tolerance to some sort of rigid action, some sort of forced action, forcing people, taking the rights away, so that they can clean up encampments and kind of force people into treatment. But we haven't seen what that looks like. We just know that just about everybody's fed up, and there's enough mayors and enough people willing to use the notwithstanding clause to address a problem that is otherwise unaddressable, or so it appears.
Yeah.
And as I told you before, during the meeting where the mayor brought this up, Lori Lococo objected because she had said, look, the people who normally deal with this have never had enough resources to deal with it. If somebody wants to get off drugs, they have the waiting list is way too long. There's not enough facilities to take care of. So if somebody finally gets up the courage to say, okay, I want to get off drugs, I want treatment, and they phone or they approach somebody, sorry, can't help you for at least 2 weeks or a month or something like that. Well, what's that going to do? I mean, you leave them, you know, you want to attend to them immediately. Here, come here. You're going to stay in this room. You're going to go through cold turkey or whatever you have to do, and we'll fix you up.
Yeah.
No, come back in a couple of weeks, maybe. Well, you could be dead by that time, or you could have just lost whatever initiative you had. So to strike while the iron's hot is basically the thing. If you have a drug addict comes, I want treatment. I want it right now. Okay, right now, come here. We're going to put you here. This is where we're going to go. You're going to stay in this room right now, and we're going to fix you. Right? We're going to help you. We'll treat you for your drug.
It's an assumption. There's also a bit of a wrong assumption that they're all drug addicts.
Well, no, but that particular case where Lori's trying to tell those on the streets. Many of them, of course, are drug addicted, because we hear lots about the needles all over the place. Mental health and addiction, and those two go together. So what her point was, she was bringing up an example like we haven't given the existing facilities enough money and enough resources to do what they can do, to counsel people. And she says, for instance, when somebody in one of these camps wants to dry up, and get clean, they have to wait, because there's no facility that can take them. And that's what I mean. You got to strike when the iron hot. When the person comes in and wants help now, that's when you give it to them. It's the same with mental health. When people come in for mental health, they'll come to the hospital and say, "Look, I need some mental health care." They'll send them away. "Oh, we don't have enough room. We can't do anything. I want to talk to a psychiatrist." "Well, here, we can fit you in next month." You see what I mean? So the facilities that do exist are under-resourced to the max. And what you're going to find, if you start to force people into treatment, you're going to find the same problem. You will not have the resources to deal with them. And in the end, it's the same problem. You need those resources. And so you can call in Bill, the notwithstanding clause, and you're still going to be left with the same problem. You still do not have enough resources to deal with them.
I don't believe that it's going to change anything. I really don't. I think it's being put up as a panacea. I think, Mike is right in saying the demand to use the notwithstanding clause is like essentially declaring a state of emergency. That state of emergency over the homeless crisis has been loud and clear, and many cities have called for it across the province over the last year.
Well, even the region had a state of emergency for a while, didn't they? And then they had to withdraw because nothing was happening.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, many cities, many municipalities across the whole of the province have been demanding change, but nothing has been happening. Will anything happen because they've demanded the use of the notwithstanding clause?
The notwithstanding clause would have to come with assurances of resources.
Yeah, exactly.
You could have a notwithstanding clause, but what will the notwithstanding clause will do? Nothing. Really, it would just, you couldn't make it. You will have to have a commitment by the province of funding and resources. And if they had already done that with the existing groups, you probably would have probably found some much better results than we have had so far. But if you call a notwithstanding clause and do not dump tons of resources on it, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And part of the problem is, do we have the resources? Do we have the money to spend on those resources? And I think the answer to that one is probably categoric no.
Well, all I see is them not knowing what to do with the people, so they'll incarcerate them.
Yeah.
If they incarcerate them, and then we only have so many places to incarcerate in the first place, but let's say they had enough. So we don't know what we do with you. We don't have enough resources to deal with your mental health issues, your economic issues, or your drug issues, or combinations of those. So we don't know what else to do. So we're going to put you in jail.
Yeah.
Because at least we get you off the street, and the streets look nice, and there's no tents, and there's no feces on the ground, and there's all, but in the meantime, that's an infringement on that person's rights, and they're putting in jail for basically being a vagrant.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. We've been talking about our tent cities here. I was watching a news report the other week that was talking about several places in America. And one of the places that they actually showed on this news report was a gentleman camped in basically a large box made out of several boxes of cardboard being added together. He's made himself this little encampment on there, and he's probably 4 blocks away from the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Well, that's nothing new for Washington. In fact, there was always famous photographs of the Capitol dome from the slums that were in and around Washington.
Yeah.
Washington was full of slums and black people mostly, and it was a common practice for photographers to take a picture of the
Yeah.
Capitol building through these slums.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that has been nothing new in Washington.
And it wasn't just Washington, though. It was pretty well, it was a lot of cities across America, and their encampments are phenomenal size compared to ours. We've got maybe 20 or 30 people living in an encampment, maybe if at the very most. There they seem to have 500, 600, 700 people, maybe even 2,000 or 3,000 people living in an encampment.
They got much bigger cities.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know that. But even
and you'll find there's certain places they find that the homeless people find easier to live in. Nevada, for one, that was full of people because the weather is consistent there. So a lot of vagrants will end up there because it's easier to live there because the weather there is more consistent. San Francisco, areas of there are overwhelmed. Places like Seattle, and other areas like that have might be more moderate temperatures, and that's probably why so many people come down in, Southern Ontario, of course, but this is happening everywhere in little towns like Peterborough and stuff like that. They have their own homeless crisis. And we are going to find that the notwithstanding clause is going to be an expression of our intolerance towards them, and what that will look like after they employ it will be what measure of its effectiveness will be. And as we've just said, you have to, if you're going to have the notwithstanding clause, you're going to have a mountain of resources to deal with the problem. Otherwise, you're just going to throw people in jail.
Right. Okay, so Mike is basically, there's a few questions here. Betty talks about Pierre Polyev talks about cleaning them up, but offers never enough facilities. Mike is saying about we have normal store workers endangered every day by stealing and thieving that's going on. I challenge a counsellor to spend a day at Lundy's Lane Pharmacy and see the horrors going on every day. Right. Betty's saying she agrees with Mike, and if they did a tour of the cities that are most violent, okay, and then Betty, if they would just walk the city and see that it's the only way, and see that it's the only way.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this manifests itself, and that's the important part. There are conditions by which some of the cities were loath to insist upon the notwithstanding clause, but on the other hand, wanted more action and stricter action to happen to their homeless populations, their homeless demographic.
Yeah.
So the shift is definitely going towards we can't handle this anymore. We have to do something.
Yeah.
And all previous attempts have come up with nothing, as we recall from municipal election after municipal election. Everybody had their I think two municipal elections ago, there was I think every candidate had a format for what to do with the homeless people.
Yeah, it was true of the last election in 22. Every candidate was talking about need for doing something on elections, and a whole wide range of scopes, a whole wide range of ideas. How many have been tried, I don't know. Probably very few.
Well, at least they haven't, as Laurie pointed out, they haven't had a full bank of resources to deal with it. If you're unwilling to get the resources for those people who are already working in that field, then where are you going to get the resources when you start to throw them into jail? For one thing, if you want to incarcerate them, where are they going to go? If you're going to have a special place for them to live, where is that going to be? And is that going to be any good for them at all? You might want to spread them around, because when you collect a lot of poor people, many of which are drug addicted, others which who have economic problems, that's why they're there. And I said, like, combinations of the others. It could be economic, drug, and mental all at once. It could be economic and mental. It could be, all kinds of different things here. This is a tough problem to overcome. And if you don't find the resources, you don't find that, you could chase it all day long, notwithstanding clause or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely you can. And there's no easy answers. We've been saying this for the last 5 years?
Yeah, exactly. This is like since day one the show began. Homelessness being the number one issue. I bet you the most talked about issue on this show.
Absolutely it has. And the thing is that we've heard a lot of suggestions. We've seen very little action, though.
We've seen hesitant action. We haven't seen any bold or new action. We've just seen, let's keep doing what we've been doing.
Yeah.
And it basically originally it was a tolerance and an understanding that they're but for the grace of God go I. So we'll make sure the soup kitchens got enough. We'll make sure Project Share's got enough. Make sure we got to get them coats and boots and all those other things. But then when the problem doesn't solve itself, when you give but don't get anything back, that's when the tolerance begins to wear thin.
Well, one of the things that we saw that development earlier this year, back in February, about these new homes they put out into. They were based on containers where each container had about 3 or 4 little units for homeless people. Now, one of the things I subsequently found out about that particular unit is they're throwing people out at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Well, they do it on they do that in all of the all the places where they go, all the shelters. They toss them out in the morning, and they let them back.
Why don't you
if you go to Hamilton, and you go to the Salvation Army building there, you'll see long lineups of people trying to get in for the night.
Yeah, I know. Night. But why not give them
out in the morning?
But you see, these people who've got the places in the St. Catherine's shelter, they've got the same room at night. Why don't you leave them in the room? Let them stay there all day.
Well, you'll have to ask them why they do it that way. I think it's just because they don't want their place to become a shooting gallery or anything else.
I get that, but again, we need to provide there's some other things we need to do.
Yes, well, we'll find out what those are. I like to see what are the plans behind the notwithstanding clause. If you're going to bring in a notwithstanding clause, what then do you do? Do you put people in jail? Do you get containers for them to live in? Do you take them out of the city to the outside of the city and put them there and forget about them and say you can't come back into the city? Or do you put them someplace outside the city where there's a bus route into the town where you can make sure that they can be treated? They're all manner of things. But whatever you want to say, notwithstanding clause or not, it's going to take enormous amount of resources and concentration.
It takes resources, yeah, absolutely it does. Yeah, it's not going to happen on a dime.
Yeah. Sure. Not in here.
Yeah.
I'm boring.
Okay. Pardon me?
I'm yawning. I'm boring myself.
Right. Grow on the Go will bring Grow subsidized market program to other areas in Niagara. So they've got themselves a new van. It looks intriguing.
Yes. Now this is something I remember Grow coming to talk to us at our club, and I also attended Grow presentation in the St. Catharines Kiwanis Club, and our Kiwanis Club here in Niagara Falls, our Stanford Club, and
Yeah.
both we have supported Grow to the tune of about $9,000 or $10,000 over the last couple of years. But we give the money to the store that is on the corner of Hamilton and 4th Street, the old
Yeah.
Boy Scout building. In there, they have a nice little grocery store where they get a lot of food, so lots of it from Post for breakfast cereals and stuff, lots of stuff from La Cocos. And what they do is then they sell that food for a whole lot less than you would find it in a grocery store. And that is to make sure that people get healthy food, which costs more, fresh vegetables. They don't sell any junk in there. It's either it's vegetables, it's potatoes, it's milk and eggs and all sorts of things that are good, sound, healthy choices, and even their box cereals, which they get from Nabisco over there. They get them, and there are the better ones for you, the ones that are more nutritious.
The ones that are not sugar laden.
Yeah, not Cocoa Krispies,
Yeah.
or Count Chocula or some dumb thing like that. Right? Or Fruit Loops or anything like that. So they're good, solid food worth things good for children, good for adults, good for anything. And what they do is they sell it for markedly less, including some. I mean, I was there. They had better selections of bread that I've seen anywhere else. Really healthy stuff. So I would say that's a really good thing. But the problem is there's these things called food deserts, and Pam Farrell, who is running this thing, and her group, and I'll note that she was called one of the world's most effective people by Women's Magazine or some, not Women's Magazine, but some Women's Institute or something. So she's had accolades, and I'll get that up in the article in a minute. Which what she has done basically is she's got an electric truck right now, and when they pitched their idea of an electric truck to go around from place to place to what they call food deserts, where the people don't have to come to the store, but the store can go to them, so they can go to places where food is not easily available for people of humble means. So they'll go to where the people are, these food deserts, and then they can sell them these foodstuffs at a reduced rate. You have to prove that you're a low-income person. That's one of the things they have to do. You have to prove that you're a low-income person, and if you do, then you qualify for this food truck and for the store.
Yeah.
But that's a really good idea. Now they've got an electric vehicle, and they chopped it up and they made it into so that when they take the sides up, there's a like a store selection of food right there, made a part of the body of the truck, of the electric truck. So they've done everything right. When they made their pitch for this truck, most of the club members didn't believe that was an effective way to do it. They thought it was too expensive because the amount of money that was required to get this truck up and going, we thought would have been better spent elsewhere for clubs on ours of our size. So we did not give money towards the truck, but we did give money for the grow store in town. Luckily for them, they got the Branscombe and
Family Foundation, and Rotary Club of Niagara Falls have contributed to this.
Yeah, so they must have done it in a big way, because that truck cost like something like nearly $250,000, or at least that was the price tag we saw.
Yeah. Okay. They must have figured out something, but yeah. Well, basically, it's supported by Rotary Club of Niagara Falls and Branscombe Family Foundation.
Yeah, so they must have thrown in on the truck thing. I think also the club in Stanford, or this club in St. Catharines, Aquinas Club in St. Catharines, they might have thrown money towards the truck as well. But our club wouldn't, because we thought that there was too much resources, and where would be better spent right in the store. But nevertheless, we did give them $4,000 in the summertime. So
yeah. Okay. All right.
But anyway, hats off. They got the thing going. And her vision, Pam Farrell's vision of taking needed foodstuffs to areas where people can't easily get good foodstuffs, to like people of humble means can't get them. I mean, my hat's off to her. Her dream has come true, and it's done well. And she's even got an electric truck, which is another for her.
Betty is saying we should do more gardening. We should also make the kids run through the house. That gets rid of the sugar, I think. The fact that street people or people addicted need sugar. Yeah, okay, maybe.
Not really. Like if your brain is swollen because of too many drugs in it, or because of sugar, will reduce the inflammation of the brain a little bit, but that's only a short stopgap. And the reason why I learned that is when a friend of mine had a head injury, and he was in the hospital. He had a constant crave for sugar, and the nurses told us that sugar will temporarily help inflammation of the brain. I don't know how that does that, but it can't be a good thing in the long run, because sugar is not a good thing for you. Sugar is kind of like the new tobacco. It's extremely addictive. You got kids going to the corner store getting huge slushies and all that other stuff. They're sugar packed. Sugar is doing the reason why we have so much diabetes today is because we have so much refined sugar. And refined sugar is what is attacking our where we make our insulin, and that throws it all out of whack. So sugar, by giving your kids a lot of sugar today, you might as well be giving them tobacco. Yeah, it has a long-term consequence.
Yeah, and sugar is something I've never eaten in great quantities. Sure, every once in a while I have something that contains sugar. But the problem here is that most of what you buy in the supermarket contains sugar.
Yes, it is. And that's because when they made things non-fat, they substituted that. They have to make it taste good. So when they put a lot of fat stuff in it and oils and that into your foods, and then there was this big anti-fat thing, they substituted the fat with sugar and said this is non-fat, but it was worse for you because it was saturated in sugar.
Yeah. Okay. There's an emergency alert coming to Ontario cell phones, TV, and radio this week, and this message is: don't call 911. All right.
Don't call 911. Yeah. Okay. There's this emergency thing that's going to happen on the 20th of at about 12:55. They're testing their alert system. Their alert system for tornadoes, natural disasters, accidents, terrorist attacks, and all that. So they have an emergency system that will bleep on TVs, telephones, radios, and then describe the nature of the emergency. But they're going to test this on the 20th, I believe, isn't it? And do you see it there?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, November 20th. Yeah, except for Quebec.
But so anyway, everywhere in Canada except for Quebec at 12:55 on November 20th, you're going to hear this. What happens though? They find people phoning 911 to ask what is the emergency, because there was no follow-up after a test alarm. So what they're trying to tell you now is you're going to get this big alarm. It's just a test. Do not phone 911 and try to find out what it is.
The alarm itself should say, do not call 911. This is a test alarm, da-de-da, right? Do not call 911.
Start then saying, people don't read. But people don't read.
I know. That's the problem. People don't read.
Yeah. So that's the big problem. So they're trying to get, see what they have found in the past is people, the test alarm goes off and then people think, I haven't heard what the disaster or what the alarm is about. So I'll phone 911 to get the answer. Well, what it does is plug up the 911 line. So they're trying to tell you, do not do that.
And in fact, actually, is one of the weaknesses and difficulties of this alert system is, for example, there was a situation where they were talking about. There was one I seem to remember because I read the alert and I thought this was utter madness. Here am I down in Niagara and they're talking about some kid kidnapped up in Thunder Bay, Northern Ontario, and the alert actually said they suspect that the father is taking him to his home in North Bay. Well, why am I hearing about this in Niagara Falls? I'm not even in 2 hours distance to there. These need to be more localized. Not everybody in
how often have you had that happen now?
They still happen too often.
Yeah, well, you know what? The last one I got was in I think in September. Used to get them every couple of days, if you remember, when somebody kidnapped somebody's kid or whatever else, usually a domestic. Yeah, and you put out the alarm, and it could have been for Thunder Bay, but I haven't found a whole lot of those lately. In fact, I've only had one in October. That's the last one I remember. Is one I think in September or October. Yeah. No, I think it was maybe even August, but it was I had one, and when it went off, I was surprised because I hadn't had an alert like this for a very long time. And what it turned out to be was an alert for a tornado. So it was local enough because it was in Southern Ontario.
Yeah.
So they have refined that. Obviously, they've refined it because we don't get the alarms going on off all the time. And this alarm system will natural disasters like tornadoes, tsunamis, hurricanes, landslide. Of course, we're not going to get too many tsunamis here, but we could get leftover hurricanes, landslide, earthquake, or flash flood warning, or terrorist threat, animal danger, or amber alert.
Yeah.
So those are the things that it will help us with.
Well, I think the amber alerts are actually very important. But I think they, as I said, they have to be more localized. I hadn't realized, what you were saying. That might well be true, that in fact they have addressed that problem.
Yeah, because mine used to go off just about every week and it's usually some kid that was taken usually by one of the two adults. And they show
in an area where you're nowhere near,
Yeah. So if that happens locally, let's say in West Lincoln, somebody runs off with a child.
Yeah, of course, because you may be able to see it, right?
Yeah. So that would be okay.
Yeah.
But if like I said, I've got very few of them in the last year, very few. And the one I did get in the summertime, it was for tornado alert. So it was absolutely relevant.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else on this subject? We got a whole heap of comments. So yes, it's tomorrow. I heard the sun. Heard the sun blew a hole in it. I didn't. Yeah, thank you. Didn't hear that. Okay, exactly. I don't know what she was saying. She didn't hear. Missing children. Don't see any faces shown. Yeah, in fact, actually, you more often than not, the one example that I remember was they gave a number plate and his description for the father of the thing. What it turned out to be is the father actually was overdue in returning his kid. He had broken down on the side of the road.
Yeah, really. Yeah, some panicking mother.
And worst of all, it was broken down on the side of a road in a remote location. So it wasn't like, if he'd have broken down on, let's say, the QEW or something, somebody would have been able to pick him up and deal with his problem. But he was like remote. He was in a very remote location.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to know that the Amber Alert system was named after Amber Renee Hagerman, who was abducted and found later murdered in January 17th, 1996. Yeah, that's sad. But the Amber Alert, of course, focusing on children. But like I said, I haven't seen a whole lot of those.
Yeah.
Like you don't get the ones for Thunder Bay or North Bay or Sault Ste. Marie anymore. You don't get the ones for Ottawa.
Yeah. So, maybe they've listened.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So farmers who own properties at the center of the controversial land assembly in Wilmot Township have not received purchase offers from the region of Waterloo, apparently.
Well, the Waterloo region includes Wilmot Township.
Yeah.
And Wilmot Township has a bursting population of 20,585. It's a farm community. And basically what this is, there is some real hesitation. It appears that Toyota wants to buy a bunch of land to develop its own battery facilities here in Ontario. And the town has tried to buy up about 700 or probably close to 800 acres of land, maybe more, from the farm areas. They're given fair market price, so they say. The farmers are saying no, they're not. The township says we're going to expropriate it if you don't give it to us. The farmers, the friends of the farmers, basically are saying, look, this doesn't look good. You're eating up farmland. That's bad enough. But it doesn't look like with a guy like Trump, and I could say this, Trump has shown up in Wilmot, maybe not physically, but definitely spiritually. He showed up there and put the fear of God into any more resources to electric car production, because he says he's going to reduce that. That's awful ridiculous when you think Elon Musk is one of his best buddies and he's the number one producer of electric.
Yeah, I'm kind of weird about that one, because like how can he be saying that exactly when he's got Musk on board, who is an ambassador for electric vehicles?
Yeah, and Musk has also touted the climate effects of electric cars and all other things, which is completely contrary to the Trump drill, baby drill. It just really doesn't make much sense. I don't think you're going to be able to hold back the development of the electric car.
Actually, it doesn't make any sense at all, because even if you were pro oil, pro big oil, surely you can be dualistic about it and be both sides of the ground as well, because both are profitable.
So the Fight for the Farmland group in Wilmot says that, look, it's dubious whether or not the EV industry is going to really be able to take off, particularly with tariffs that Trump is said to begin, his dislike for electric cars, all in all, his drill baby drill approach to produce more combustion cars. I think Trump just said all that to get elected, and he will follow the trends as they come forward. If he thinks that the United States is going to be a stronger economy if it develops more and more EVs, that's where he's going to put his effort, and he's definitely going to get a nudge that way from Elon Musk if Elon doesn't get tossed out of his house anytime soon. two big egos like that always come to a fight to loggerheads, I'm sure.
6
But
months.
anyway, they're just saying that, look, now that Trump is in, so Trump has reared his ugly head in little 20,000 strong Wilmot Township, and pretty much Trump is telling Wilmot that do not go ahead with this EV stuff because you might not. It may be just you might ruin this land, this farmland, for no reason at all. It might be just a big white elephant you build and you just ruined a bunch of farmland.
Yeah, I have this whole question because this whole question is the 700 acres of new residential land, right, that they want to take over for this township. Yeah, in fact, actually, any use of taking up, they don't even know that they've got jobs yet, let alone, anything else.
This is it's all hush hush basically, but it looks like it's a development that Toyota wants to make. Now, Toyota already builds some pretty fine cars in Ontario as it is.
I'm not objecting to Toyota and what Toyota wants to do. It's just that the plant hasn't even been fully actioned yet. So it's not even 100% settled that the plant is going to be made.
Yeah. So, but they are buying up the land, and they'll expropriate it if you don't sell it. You're going to get a fair price, and if you don't sell it, we're going to expropriate it. Now, the fair price is the number one issue here. Well, it's a secondary issue according to the farmers, but it is an issue saying, no way is this a fair price for the land. So they're lowballing the price of the land and trying to force it down the people's throats. That's not good. If they can assure the people that this will be a thriving plant and it will bring employment to the area, that would be some assurance. But the idea that the farmers are talking about here is you're not going to get this farmland back. Why not take this ugly old factory and put it someplace that doesn't have good farmland? And there's lots of places in Ontario that doesn't have good farmland. Why not pick a place like that? This has good farmland. So what are you doing?
That's a very valid comment. You've talked about it before in relation to a local area. Why are we building on prime farmland when we can utilize parts of our area that don't have, that have low quality land, farmland?
Yeah, exactly.
Where you could actually build houses without destroying any farmland.
Precisely.
Yeah,
precisely. So the I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this. I think the EV thing is going to go ahead. I think the fear of Trump again is overdone. We find these people trying to run away from or trying to figure out a way to get into Canada. I mean, these are professionals. I'm not talking about the refugee types. It's over fear. It's overdone. I don't think Trump will be able to stop the development of the EV car. And I tell you why. It's because EVs make better use of energy than combustion cars do. It's just a better use of energy. It just takes less energy, less resources to push an electric vehicle down the road than it does to put a combustion engine down the road.
The interesting thing is I've seen about some of the more recent developments of electric vehicles is that some of them are now big trucks, not just small, small cars like the first ones that Tesla brought out. Some of these are now monster trucks.
Some of them are pretty big trucks and buses. I saw lots of battery operated buses in Portugal when I was there. So they're brand new, battery operated. They don't take a source of electricity off of a wire like the streetcars do in Toronto. So the problem I see basically is it'll take time. I think we have to get over the inflation thing. We have to become more accustomed to electric cars. But every time I look around, there's more and more of them. I see more and more of them being plugged in here and there. And of Chris says, what places aren't good for farmland? Well, here in Niagara, we have the Willoughby clay belt in the south part of our city. There's a whole clay belt there that is really not that good for farmland.
Yeah.
That would be ideal for housing.
Well, there are other places. There are other places like that as well. Not just the clay belt, but others that you could equally well do as well.
Yeah.
Everybody knows them in certain local areas, and depends. And Betty makes a point that a lot of this where we build depends upon roads and efficiency.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have to get in and out of any home village, etc. And this particular one in Wilmot is built on a main road anyway. Would be fronting on a main road.
So it's probably end up with a Highway 8, very close to the 401.
Yeah, it'll probably end up with a roundabout on it. Massive roundabout or whatever for their. So this is Highway 7-8.
Yeah, it runs right into, it leads right into the 401.
Yeah,
and it's very close to Waterloo. So you have a situation there that it's ideally located for an industry because of the transportation links that are close to it.
Yeah,
but that's the problem when we develop here, especially residentially, as the Ford government had done. They do it based on the infrastructure logistics rather than what land is more suitable for housing, which more is suitable for farmland. They don't want to expand too far out of where the infrastructure already is, which is probably the wrong way to look at it. So here's a piece of property over here that's really not good farmland. That's where we'll build, but it's 10 miles over here or 5 miles over here, which means you have to run sewer lines longer and whatever. But here's this nice piece of farmland as close to the infrastructure. So we'll eat up this piece of farmland and put houses on it. I think that's the wrong way to go. I think we have to make the investment of putting in an infrastructure into the places. And the infrastructure that we have now follows the settlement patterns, which originally followed the best land use. So that idea has to be overcome, and you have to say, okay, there's an area that's not good for farmland, but we will have to build infrastructure to get there, sewer, pipelines, and a road.
But again, it follows this Wilmot Township basically follows the history of how we built most things anyway. It's already on one communication route, i.e. Highway 7-8. Basically building it is makes a certain amount of sense. You just got to put in a junction at that highway to get people into that.
Well, it's very close to the 401. It's like minutes.
Yeah, exactly. You've told me everything positive about this place that almost says buy.
Build a factory here.
Buy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But the Friends of Farmland.
I know. Notwithstanding what you're saying about farmland, and I accept what you're saying about the farmland and how, are we using the best of that? But in fact, in reality, if we did a survey, how many of our homes are built on what would otherwise, even up here in Niagara Falls, your home is built upon what used to be orchards, right?
Yep. This whole neighborhood here. In fact, in my old house where I used to live just a few blocks from here, we used to dig in the backyard and we'd find peach pits.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So there we don't always build in the best areas. And in fact, the fact that there was already a township of Clifton and Niagara Falls here, Stanford and the like, is where you basically just had that expansion out from those individual centers, haven't you?
Yeah.
And that happens, and though doesn't take into consideration what's the best in terms of the best use of land for homes.
Yeah, and the fear that the long shadow of Donald Trump will extinguish any heat coming from the EV production. I think EV production is going to go ahead.
It will. It
made
will.
massive investments in it. As a matter of fact, right now, Doug Ford wants to kick Mexico out of the free trade deal because Mexico is importing cheap Chinese electric vehicles, which just kill our electric vehicle industry. So, so there's so much investment and so much.
Yeah, but hey, I could deal with those $10,000 Chinese EVs. Plug them in, use them to drive to work each week. It keeps my car nice and fresh, right?
That's right.
I keep my car for the road trips. You know, you plug in my Chinese EV, and I'm up and down to work. Who cares?
Well, the trouble is the Chinese government has pre-programmed your car. So as soon as you think yourself, I'm hungry, it automatically takes you to a Chinese takeout.
Yeah, I know, and I'm joking, of course. You know that
a Chinese takeout associated with the
CCP,
the Chinese government.
Yeah, not an anti one. All right, I think we kind of have to call it quits right now. I've got a hearing to go to this morning.
Yeah, Xi Jinping Sui for here, right here. And so anyway, yes, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Peace, everyone.